David, who's always holed up at his mistress' place, came home. I thought it was unusual, but then he starts saying, "Hey, Emma. It's about time you got some freedom." Well, what's gotten into you all of a sudden? I played dumb, but deep down, I knew it was coming. My husband wants a divorce. My name is Emma. To the outside world, I'm the wife of a famous company's president, but the reality is different. To David, I'm just a convenient housekeeper. David, married for 20 years, always had an affair going on. You've always devoted yourself to this house, I know that better than anyone. It must have been tough. David pretends to care, but it's so insincere. Our only daughter, Haley, is graduating from college this year, and my father-in-law, who I'm currently caring for, doesn't have much time left. David has always dumped everything he finds bothersome on me, and now, he probably thinks there's nothing left for me to do. In other words, I'm no longer useful to him. Your mother and father have been very kind to me. I married David right after graduating from college, without getting a job. I took care of my mother-in-law for 10 years and saw her off after that tragic incident. Seems like you visited Dad today, but he's probably completely senile, right? No point in talking to him, he won't understand. You don't need to visit so often. That's your own father. Wouldn't it be nice to at least visit him once? You're joking, right? It's a waste of time if he can't understand me. Anyway, I want to set you free. Pack your things. Okay. But please visit your father at least once. Enough. It's pointless to see that senile old man. You really lack common sense. I'm going home. I wanted to tell him that he's the one lacking common sense, but I held back. I don't intend to divorce. David, angry but satisfied his point got across, quickly left the house. He's probably off to his mistress' place now. Her name is Maria. Only 4 years older than our daughter. I can't believe he sees someone so young as a romantic interest. By the way, David and I didn't marry for love. Ours was a marriage of convenience. My father and my father-in-law were childhood best friends. They made a foolish promise to marry their kids if one was a boy and the other a girl. Normally such a casual promise would be void as adults, but there were circumstances. After graduating high school, my father and father-in-law started a business together, caught the wave of the times, and hit it big. They wanted to strengthen the foundation of the company by becoming relatives. That's not to say I had no affection for David. Our fathers were close, and we often interacted as families. David always had a way with women, even when he was a student, but I optimistically thought he'd settle down once married. Then tragedy struck. 3 years into our marriage, in the winter, both families went on a ski trip. David returned early alone in a taxi, citing a prior commitment, while the rest of us joyfully took a bus. We were involved in a sudden accident, losing my parents and severely injuring my mother-in-law. My father-in-law broke his leg, but miraculously, my daughter was unharmed. She was protected by my parents sitting next to her. I was next to my mother-in-law, who shielded me, so I escaped with minor injuries. The accident made the cover of economic magazines, and our company's stock fluctuated wildly, showing how big the company had grown. My father-in-law, blaming himself for planning the trip, busied himself with rebuilding the company, while my mother-in-law became bedridden, requiring my care for the next 10 years. As for David, he joyously filled the void left by my father, becoming a director at a young age without any struggle. That's what you call falling into good fortune. I'm lucky, he cheered. That's when I gave up on David. About a week after David's declaration of setting me free. He came home again. Hey. Why haven't you filled in the divorce papers? Why would I? You haven't given them to me. It's unreasonable to fill in something I haven't been given. You should get them yourself. Normally, the person who wants the divorce gets the papers, right? I've always done the tedious paperwork for David, but I can't believe how pathetic he is. But, I repeat, I don't intend to divorce. You told me to pack my bags, but you never said to get the divorce papers. I showed David several boxes piled up. So you did pack. You're really hopeless. Can't figure out anything unless I spell it out. David ridiculed me but seemed a bit happier. He's so easily manipulated. He didn't even ask whose stuff I packed. By the way, did you visit your father? Enough already. There's no way I'd go. David got angry again and spat, just get the divorce papers ready. Then, another week passed. David came home. Why haven't you sent the divorce papers? Oh. You didn't because I didn't tell you to. Give them to me now. David was really upset. Listen, I've thought about it, and I don't want a divorce. What? What are you talking about? You've been married, raising kids, and caring for the elderly. Don't you want freedom? You're still in your 40s. David panicked, thinking I'd be happy to divorce. Isn't it weird to think divorce equals freedom? I can be free without divorcing. No. We don't love each other. You'd be happier if we divorced. I already know why David is so desperate for a divorce. So you want to be with your beloved Maria? How did you know that? How? Because she called me directly, asking to divorce you since she's pregnant. Maria, she cares so much about me. That's why we should divorce. I refuse. Why? You don't love me, do you? It's not about love. Isn't recognizing the child enough? The baby's a boy. He'll be the heir to the company. What about Haley? She's here. Haley's a girl. The CEO has to be a man. This is another reason I can't forgive David. He never cared for our daughter, insisting the heir must be a boy. I see. Understood. You get it? Then hurry up with the divorce papers. No, I refuse. I understand your situation, that's what I meant. By the way, did you visit your father? Cut it out. Never mention visiting him again. Send the divorce papers by mail and make sure they're filled out. David smirked, satisfied, and left the house. 3 days later. Hey, why haven't the divorce papers arrived? David stormed in, furious. Why? You never told me where to send them. Besides, I already said I don't want a divorce. You're just full of excuses, aren't you? You just want to trouble me. Is it money? Will money make you happy? Well, yes. Of course, I'd want a fair alimony. How about $20,000? David exclaimed. Is my 20 years worth only $20,000? Fine, $30,000. Well, that's even less than a fresh graduate's annual salary at our company. You're so greedy. I'll even throw in the house we're living in. I hardly live there anyway. A house is no good without funds to support it. David started getting irritated as I dodged his offers. Maybe it's the right time. I hate to bring this up, but your mother's inheritance was quite substantial, right? Even though you're an only child, I didn't get anything. I wonder if you're planning the same for your father's inheritance. Of course, his mother's inheritance belonged to David. I didn't covet her jewelry because it was valuable. I just wanted something. Anything that she treasured as a keepsake. But David pawned it all for money. He was so stingy because his father strictly monitored his spending, not allowing him to use more than his salary. His salary went to his lavish spending, and if his father hadn't provided for us, my daughter and I wouldn't have survived. I wonder if your father's inheritance is about this much. Maybe a few more zeros? At this, David seemed to remember that he'd soon inherit from his father. Such a dull man. Fine, take all my savings and divorce me. But no more complaining. You won't get a dime of Dad's inheritance. David threw a bank book at me from his ever-present clutch bag. He believed he had tricked me with a meager sum, confident in his forthcoming inheritance. I had been waiting for this moment. To get revenge on David and regain my freedom, I was ready for the next step. All right, I'll divorce you. By the way, is managing the company tough? What's this all of a sudden? Well, yes, it's tough. Thank you for confirming. It must be hard. Thus, my divorce from David was finalized, and after a while, his father passed away. When I thought the time was right, David barged in, yelling. You tricked me. What's this about Dad's inheritance being only $5,000? Wasn't it supposed to be $5 million? That's why I said a few more zeros. Maybe different from your mother's. I hadn't lied. David looked frustrated and defeated. That will. You knew about it. Before his passing, his father, in consultation with a lawyer and after much deliberation, had given most of his assets to my daughter and me. 2 years prior, he donated almost everything else to a foundation. He also took great care to write a will that said, all my property will go to me and my daughter. It was all done legally, with official documents prepared by the lawyer. David had the right to claim his compulsory share, but it wouldn't amount to much. He had expected a fortune but got nothing. What about my removal from the board? Yesterday, the company's board meeting, with everyone but David in agreement, had removed him as the CEO. I was taking his place. It was big enough news to make the TV headlines. All this time, you've dumped every hassle on me. Work is tough, right? I'll take over for you. I'll take your seat. His father had helped me immensely, regretting that he let David take over just because he was a man and feeling ashamed of his son. His father apologized to me many times for his son's failures but wanted to give David one last chance, urging him to visit through me. A woman like you. Who do you think supported the company behind the scenes while you were the nominal CEO? Haley and I did. I did the company's work from home while caring for your father, and Haley was tutored by him. He was supposed to be senile. You just assumed that, but his mind was sharp, only his body was paralyzed. David sat down, stunned, but I had decided to take everything from him. By the way, about Maria's baby. Are you sure it's really yours? What are you saying? Of course, it's my child. Remember when we were blamed for not having a second child, and we both got tested at the hospital? I had no issues. It was a male problem. Are you really sure it's your child? Oh, Haley is definitely yours, but the doctor said it was a miracle. No way. I didn't say more, but the truth is, this woman, Maria. She seemed to be a well-known marriage scammer. Knowing David was infertile, she targeted him, a fact I learned after hiring a detective to investigate. The cell phone Maria used, which David bought and paid for, was also discovered. I had compiled all the evidence, including her current address and phone number, and submitted it to the police. Maria will probably be arrested soon, and David will likely be questioned by the police. Even though he was unaware, he was complicit in marriage fraud. I had been waiting for this day. I deliberately didn't agree to a divorce to gradually corner David, watching for the perfect opportunity to cut ties with him completely. I filed for compensation for infidelity and adultery through a lawyer against David and Maria. The house where David and Maria lived was in his father's corporate name. Since I ousted him as CEO and divorced him, he had no right to continue living there. I also filed for their eviction. All of David's belongings left at our home were packed up, ready to be disposed of at any time. David lost his job, home, money, and mistress. If he thought he was lucky to have had everything handed to him before, now he faces a life of self-inflicted misery.